All right. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. I am just now waking up myself. It's 7:30, Wednesday, December 9th, and we are doing something awesome today. I have not been this excited to get into iRacing for quite a while in terms of looking forward to something new. This is like opening a Christmas gift early, or I guess Hanukkah gifts or something like that, but here we go. Brand new IndyCar essentially, and the update just went last night, or I guess this morning. Sorry. And everything should be absolutely brand new about this car in terms of the handling characteristics, in terms of the aerodynamics, the drafting. Quite a few new features on the IndyCar. Now, I spent last season, season 20, year 20, season 4, as well as sort of the middle half of season 3, pretty much exclusively doing IndyCar as my main focus. And then I was doing some Indy Pro and stuff. So I got a really good grip on this car. And so today, what we've come to find out is that a lot of different modifications have been made to the car. So we're going to see how this new, longly anticipated new tire model works out. There's also alternate compound and hard compound, which is blacks and reds, like in the real IndyCar series. So that's a major upgrade. And then aerodynamics. There's supposed to be several other upgrades as well to the IndyCar. So we're just out here for a test drive this morning just to check it out and see what we got. As I go in, I'm just looking at my setup, which I suppose I can just give away this page of it from before. But it's telling me something is... Oh yeah, ride heights are all messed up. Ride heights and third spring gap is messed up. So right off the bat, this was an old setup from before. I don't want to load my Road America, so I'm just going to go back. Boy, you'd have to look. So, like it says, this third spring gap is too low. Let's see, what would I have to do? It was at a minus, which I don't think that's right. If I go up to positive, where does it... Where does it end? And that could be caused by the fact that some of this other stuff is set. There we go. Oh, still won't let me in. Boy. Not sure what I would need to do. So there, finally, I can get it up over the gap. I don't know why that was set that way. So first things first, I'm going to go ahead and not save this, and we're going to go ahead and open up their setup for Road America. So while this may not be how I want to drive it, this is their set to, test the car so we can see what it's like. So first of all, do we notice anything internally different? I can't see the dashboard from my view, but we can go ahead and fix that real quick. I'm guessing that there hasn't been a lot of graphical updates. This all just kind of seems like it's below the surface. One thing we can do though, after I take a look at the car here, set this camera, drop it back a bit on the FOV, so we can take a look at the internals here, and hopefully get it to about there. So I don't see anything new on the steering wheel. Looks like it's pretty much stock. So I don't see a lot of graphical difference or anything there. I don't see anything really on the inside of the car. Oops, let me go back to reset my FOV. It'd be awesome if I could race with that. Basically, what I need to do is I just need to get bigger screens to be able to have more on the screen at the same time. I have a triple monitor set up, so I get plenty of width. I just don't get the up and down, the vertical. So, okay, so that doesn't look any different. Let's go ahead and hop outside the car real quick. Get it from the rear, suspension. Looks like you can see some new parts. Oh yeah, there is a new damage model as well, so we'll get a chance to test that out. Okay, so there's the car. Looks pretty much the same. We'll spin it around here. Check it out a little bit. Oh, I always forget what does what. Huh. Let's see. Car. There we go. So now, take a look at the car. Obviously, I mean, it looks like an IndyCar. I don't see anything major that has changed. It looks relatively similar. Apparently, I don't have strakes on, or if I do have strakes on, it's not being shown. Let's see, if I change my splitter, does that come on? Oh, so strakes Z15, so maybe it does have it on? Does it change it if I turn it off? Diffuser, sidewall off, strakes off. No, it doesn't change the visual appearance, which is interesting, because usually it does that. Let's see if I exit the car, whether it has put it in place. No, it hasn't. So it doesn't actually update graphically that. I don't know whether it did before, but I just happened to notice that it doesn't actually show the diffuser. As I'd have to look at it more, but I think there's supposed to be strakes in here, because that's basically what a diffuser has. There's strakes in the middle, and then there's the sides, which is the Z15. So, outside, I don't see anything different. The pit crew looks different. They were talking about changing that, so that's definitely different. Now, the one thing that I did see, if we go back into the garage here, let's take a look in the garage and see what's different. So up here at the top, you do have the primary and the alternate. Of course, primary is going to be the black tires. Now, what's interesting is we have the reds on the car, but outside of the car are the black tires waiting to go on. And, of course, the pit crew is not actually in front of the car right now. So if I change tires, you can see the red sidewall tires there on the car. If I change it, does it go to black? Should. And it does. So, first things first, let's see how the car... there's also supposed to be engine overheating as well, and that will play a role in the races. Let's see, is there anything different here in the setup before we get going? I can see they've set the tires way up there for some reason. Perhaps that's different. I mean, that's like, you know, for the old iRacing rule, just set it basically as close down to the bottom as you can. These are like 3 pounds high, so either I'm going to end up changing that or that's something new. Then, let's see here, still have all of these aero configurations. It will not let me choose a wicker, but that's usually because that's the main plane exit is turned off. Oh, there we go. So when you put it onto double plane, it opens up the upper flap, which I guess makes sense because you're adding the upper element. And so that's just the way that it was before. It won't let me Let's see here. If I turn this on, it won't let me adjust the wing end plate angle, which it wouldn't before. Wing angle, I don't remember the ranges that it goes to, but it goes up to like 20 something and down to 7 or so. I'm not sure. Let's see. Anyway, gonna adjust it too much. So then radiator inlet, this is going to be more important now that the temperature affects the car more in terms of overheating. And then yeah, so we still have all the same trailing edge wicker, the sidewall, the diffuser, and then rear wing, same configurations. Nothing has changed there, exactly the same. Still have, oh wow, this is a new section, average tilt at speed. What does this say? So the aero calculator was always here, average front height, rear height, which of course you can only find that out in telemetry, which is fantastic. So it literally doesn't make any difference here. But average tilted speed, that's something that didn't exist before. Keep slowing it off. So at the bottom it shows average tilt is a difference in average left side versus average right side at speed. The average of tilt affects aerodynamics on the straightaway as well as in the corners. Negative is left side down and right side up. Positive is right side down. Okay, so that's awesome. Because especially on ovals, you're always carrying a difference left to right. It's not as common on road courses, just because you don't have the spring difference, so you're not then adjusting for the spring difference. But I mean, it is a real thing on road courses, because you do encounter, like for example, Road America here, the car will prefer the left side more because there's more right-hand corners. So it's going to use up the lefts a little bit more, and so there will be a tilt on the car, and that will affect the aerodynamics. So presumably, if I change this to minus here, it should affect the aero. So if we have 3 points, so we have front downforce 4810, that shouldn't be affected, but the downforce to drag should. So 3.756 to 1, if I go down, which should be left side down if I go negative. That's what the tooltip says. It actually improves just the tiniest amount. It improved the aero efficiency. Now, if I go on the other side, same thing, just the tiniest amount, it improves it, and then it falls away. So basically what it's telling us is the more asymmetrical the tilt on the car is, the worse it's going to perform. Now, that's not the end of the world, and that's not the final answer, because it also comes down to to a couple of things. One, where are your other rolling ride heights? And then the second thing is, it depends on whether you need that tilt. I mean, it may be less efficient to point the nose down or the left front down or whatever it is, but if it drives better and it's better on tires, again, this is sometimes a misleading number here, this downforce to drag. It depends on some other things than just the aero, making this one of the most ridiculous to set up cars, but that's why we love it, right? Okay, so getting into here, can we change the wheelbase? No, it will not let me change the wheelbase. Generally only on ovals it will. Trying to see just offhand if there's anything that's really different. Apologize if I skip over something that I should see, or if limits have changed. Very high spring rates in the front. It's not unnormal. It's just noticing that they're choosing high spring rates, higher, fairly high ride height for how high the spring rates are. So yeah, this is a fairly unoptimized setup from my standpoint, but we'll find out. Yeah, the ride height is 1590, which is sort of like in no man's land. And yeah, I don't see anything else there. Dampers look exactly the same. And gearing, clutch plates, all that stuff, the differential, all of this looks exactly the same. Turbo boost, can we choose that? Nope, still can't choose that. Are there any notes? Welcome to the new car. Nothing. Okay. Well, I've checked it out. We don't have a setup for this car yet, so I guess the only thing to do is go out and drive it. I can see that the, yeah, I don't know if you can see this on the screen, but there's still jaggies around where it says driver. Kind of a mild annoyance, because, yeah, you got this beautiful IndyCar, and, then you see your name up there and it's got jaggies on it. Okay, so here we go for a lap around. I haven't even had my coffee yet, man. It is 7:49. I was so jazzed to get this thing downloaded. All right, sip of coffee. There we go. Does it sound any different? No. Doesn't sound different at all. Let's see what I notice. I'll try not to just throw it off like nobody's watching. I'm not at speed yet, so it's easy to control so far. One thing I want to see really quick, though, is in the black box here, is there any way to see your temperature in the engine? Because if not, and there is not, so, you know, on the steering wheel, there is part of that display. If you flip to the second page, there is a temperature. Also, if you have crew chief, they will warn you that your cylinder temperature is getting too high, but we're not gonna have that right at this second, because that would take a little bit of, like, I would need to do a couple of hot laps to first, you know, to show that as it gets hotter, the engine performance decreases. And so, I mean, I'm planning to do all of that internally. Wow, this thing is just like on rails right now. I didn't even check to see how. I didn't even really think about the downforce, to be honest. We'll brake lock. It is set to 57.5 on the front, or which would bring the balance to the front. All right. So let's see how this wants to handle a little bit more at speed. So I just stepped on it. It didn't want to break loose. Can always be a differential setting. Could be the setup. But so far it's feeling much more locked down to the track. Oh. So did not, the tires may not have been up to temp. Tires may not be up to pressure. It did not want to just stick in there. Could be, again, I'm just using the standard setup, so the standard Road America set. Yep, it did not handle that apex bump. Not that you would clip that. We're just testing out some different features here. It's the exit curb. Had to lift a ton there. Locked a little bit on entry. Now I'm not just trying to do a fast lap here. I'm trying to test the car and see what its tendencies are now. So I mean, it understeers a little bit there, holds into the kink just fine now. Nice and easy to go through there. And it's much more stable through that corner. Really important because this car has a real strong tendency to just get loose at a lot of different spots. And again, it may be that I have way too much downforce on, I'm not sure. So that was a 153. Okay, wanted to stick our right there. I wasn't as hard on the gas as I could have been there, but stepping on it. Okay, so it did want to spin there as I got a little wacky with the bumps. But I'm noticing there's a lot less on throttle. A lot less on throttle wheel spin. Car hangs in really nice and tight now. Again, probably a lot of downforce compared to what we're going to run in the race. And I have so many tests to do. I mean, it's not just about the basics, right? We're going to test every one of these components deeply and find out what the limit is. Because, you know, the basic concept is the more stability that they introduce into the car, the more I can kind of loosen it up because there's more controllability. So didn't really want to just glide over that. Try push to pass. Push to pass still working. Probably good for a 10th on that straight. Deep onto the brakes. And it's not, you know, one thing also that it's not doing is it's not wanting to do that, the lift and spin, where you coast on basically the coast side of the diff, and a lot of times you've got this like unmanageable, except for the right foot, off throttle rotation, basically, where you are going to spin or drift uncontrollably without using your right foot to hold it into the corner. So yeah, okay, so it did want to come around there. Now that's what I was talking about, is you try to go flat. Whoops. So you try to go flat through that corner. You might lift a little bit, especially wherever the tires are at, like first lap or something. They're still coming up to temp. You're gonna lift, but that corner you should be able to get almost flat. The kink before you make it to the last corner. Just kind of pitching it into the corner. So it's improved right off the bat, I can tell you, in a couple of areas. There's not as much on throttle wheel spin, oversteer, and that's great. There also doesn't appear to be as much, you know, it's almost like they just, oh, see right there, that's what I'm talking about. I was able to introduce it. You get it in right there, see that? Now, it's already trying to spin me as so for for this car to have a new tire model, and then you come in a little hot. Let's see if I can get it to go here. No, I couldn't quite. So the new tire model is more forgiving in some situations, but can still be overrun and can still introduce. I still really haven't found on throttle oversteer. It just doesn't seem to want to break free. But off throttle is still there, and that's usually the scariest part, because you usually. So if I lift a little bit there, it tracks okay. That's just something that we'll have to play with. But again, it's not on rails no matter what you do. You know, I was thinking this update was a reaction to so many people being averse to how, you know, the people are saying it handles like ice, like you're on ice. And I mean, some of us would probably love to go racing on ice. So for some of us, it's not really that big a deal. Some of us drive the cars where you gotta like really drive it with the right foot, and yet that's not really the smooth driving that see right there. See how you can still get it to go loose? I drove it out because I don't want to wreck the car. Can't remember if I have damage on. But yeah, there's still ways like mid-corner, off throttle especially, partial throttle, where the grip goes away. There isn't enough grip, and it's either differential that's going to fix that on the coast side, or possibly another setup, or that's just the characteristic of the car. Wow. Just in general, you know, I'm sure by the time we actually get to next week, we'll probably get a new setup, so I don't know if this setup is fair comparison. It's a 49.1. And now, this is also, I believe, the black tires. Can't remember. But I don't see a red stripe on them. So again, right there on the throttle, normally you would feel a little give as you start to accelerate out there. Wow, too far. And now that was almost flat, so as the tires come up to temp, that was a wide exit, but as these blacks come up to temp, it's actually starting to get more racy, as it should. It does take a couple of laps. Who knows what the tire wear is going to look like. Makes it through the kink, as I said, perfectly easy. Now we're only pulling like upwards of 180 at the end of the backstretch there. Possibly trimmed out, we're going to pull closer to 190. So my overall assessment thus far, even on what appears to be the black tires, although I'll confirm that, it's definitely more drivable, more manageable for me. I don't know yet because we're not pushing it to the end length here, but the car feels really steerable, very much easier on throttle. You can just see there, like, it's not fighting me on throttle whatsoever. Now, again, could totally be the differential. I could be covering it up with a really safe differential. But the point is, just out of the box with the set, and, you know, even for as much as I just locked the brakes there and turned in, it still didn't just go sliding off. Now, I doubt they improved one of the most important things during a race is when you do end up in an unfortunate situation where you go sliding off the track. We're just going to do a couple more, just like 2 more laps here, just so I can try and set a decent lap. And the tires should be up to temp here. Anyway, so when you go sliding off the track, you know, the uncontrollable nature of it just going across the grass or dirt is part of real life racing, but you'd like it if in sim racing it was just a step back from there to the point where it's like, okay, you lost a bunch of time, and that's penalty enough. We shouldn't send you into the barriers just because you had an off track. That's something that I would love to test. Wow. Already done a bunch of laps, I guess. Yeah, lap 8. And again, it is really a benchmark when a car doesn't drive so differently from what you're used to that you're able to not throw it off and put it in the wall on a live demo. And I had not driven it before this. There's something like, whoa. So that's, again, you can just see that's going to be a problem. And probably that is partial line and then set up there for that corner. But yeah, it's like 300 and some megabyte update for this car, so considerable chunk of code and such. Okay, so I'm going to attempt to do one more lap after this and see if we can get in a fast lap. And hopefully I can, then as soon as we finish that lap, we're going to exit and do a lap on the reds. Or if for some reason this is the reds and I'm not seeing that while they're spinning around, then we'll do the other tire. Not a fantastic exit, but we should still have a decent lap. So let's see what we can do on this lap. Not good through there. Little long there. Sorry to say, the car still feels a little iffy. In a couple of spots, maybe a little bit of wheel spin there. That's the first time I've noticed that. Could be the tires starting to kick off. Though 8 laps would be, well, we are coming up to the end of the stint. So we'll look at the tire wear as soon as we come in here. So that's a basic, decent lap here at Road America. With the default set. 48.3, optimal down to 47s. I'm sure, you know, a really good lap, I could get it down to the 47s. Yeah, these are the black primary tires. So let's see how much faster. In a second, we'll see how much faster it is. Change the view so we can see it going around the track here. There we go. Now this is the test drive service because, as far as I know, I'll look again, but the actual website is still down for iRacing, so we can't be in our car, our livery, all of that. But we could technically work on our setup and save it, which is a cool aspect of test drive. Is you're not locked out from your car. You just don't get to drive your car, and it doesn't say your name down here, but you do have access to all of your setups, and it's the same car. So it looks beautiful going around the track. You know, what can I say? I love the look of the IndyCar. It's even with the aero screen, I've come to appreciate it to the point where I don't even really care that it's there anymore. And with Romain Grosjean's recent crash and everything, and some of the things that IndyCar drivers have been through recently, it's just, you know, it's essential. I'm sold. Oh man, it just looks great. It just looks really great going around the track. So, all right. Now, this is after, let me tell you how many laps. Let's look at our laps real quick. So, 53s, we did 9 total laps, 53, 51, 55, 59, 49, 48, 50, 50, 48. So, I actually did a 48.8 when I wasn't paying attention. But a 48.3, and we know that's going to be like a 47 at least with this setup, where I don't make mistakes. And so let's go in and change this. We'll just straight up change it to the alternate. And it won't make any difference to anything else. Though I would say that, and this is very, very true. Oh, darn it. You know what? I wanted to go back and see. I'm so sorry. I didn't really look at where the tires were at. So on one stint, we have %89 in the rear, 90%. So we still have a lot of our rear tires left. A lot. 75s in the front. So, you know, 75 left front, 78 inside right front. But the spread is in the 80s. So theoretically, if you could get the camber and everything working right, the front would be in the 80s. The rear would be sort of at like 93 or so. And that's okay. These tire temps are very hot. I didn't really look at what the temp was that it set us into. 78 degrees is the ambient, and 109 degrees track temp. So that's pretty hot. It's not the hottest that we're ever going to see, but that's pretty warm. I am a little concerned with you know, how in the 260s, I don't like seeing it go much above that, but sometimes you don't really have a choice. So anyway, let's see here. We're going to throw on the alternate tire. And now you can see down here where the radiator inlet is, that in the body arrow, if you look at where my mouse is right now, this is basically what's going to control the engine temperature. We can just put it to open and never have to worry about that, but there is an aerodynamic advantage to going with, still can't see it if I turn to the right. That's a shame. You can't see the red tires on the car, unless I zoom it back with the FOV, but there are red tires on the car, I assure you. So let's take it out. Let's do a couple laps, see if there's any difference in the performance. And go from there. Because so for those of you that maybe don't know, maybe you're just into the sim racing side of things, but the IndyCar series uses the two sets of tires. The red tire, which grips beautifully right there, and I have on the car now, and the black tire. The black is the harder of the two tires. I don't know whether by default it's set up to, let's see how much faster I am right out of the bag with the red tires on. So significantly faster, as you would expect. And so as a result, the hard tires are slower, but maybe they've configured it where you can go like twice the stint. And that's something that we will have to test. And we could actually do that if we did go, 5 or 10 laps, or as we've done 8 laps with this red tire. So if we go 8 laps, we could compare it. But I don't know. We'll just have to see how the tires hold up. So first lap, even cold tires, it feels great. Honestly, feels great. We improved our optimal time down into the 47.5 range. A lot of grip there. And ton of grip there. Now, my one experience with the alternate compounds, I did start doing some Formula One this last season, and they introduced it. I did not get a lot of chance to play with it, to play with the different compounds, so I really didn't get a chance to test and see them in too much action in the race or anything. But previously when I raced in, wow. Well, maybe I got the line wrong. Maybe the tires are still not up to temp. But that was a lot of push for that corner. But previously in R Factor 2, basically what I saw in that game, which did have the alternate compounds for the old DW12 IndyCar chassis, was that basically the hards were useless. The black tires were useless, and sometimes it was close. It was a debate sometimes whether you would do it, but ultimately it's really hard to turn down the speed of the reds, and I don't know if it was just R Factor 2 at the time, but the degradation wasn't maybe as high as it should have been on the red tires. Because ultimately, that's really the thing is, can you go, 50% longer on the black tires, the primaries? Can you go 100% longer? What is the fall off? And it's not just can you go longer, because maybe one of the tires, the primaries will let you go the entire race or something, right? But if the speed isn't there, then who cares? Because it has to equate out to whether there is some advantage to carrying less per lap speed, and there's more of an advantage to the longer stint. You just see how much faster the tire is here, the red tire. So I'd say let's just drive it a couple more laps at least and see how it falls off. See if we can push it a little bit. Because the black tire, it's not just that it's slower, like it has more drag or something. It's that it just isn't soft. It doesn't have the grip. So you struggle with it to push it, really. So you see a 47.1 there, or a lot faster. This lap a little bit slower. So that's part of the testing that you would do. You know, if I want to set up an actual test and find out the limits of this car and the limits of the tires, you're just going to set up a tire test, really, where you just do 10 laps and you compare. So if we can hang on for 8 laps, which this is our 3rd lap. But the question is, where does it peak? So you've got, you know, your peak, and then you start noticing the degradation and the fall off, woo, to the point where it wants to, it doesn't want to grip as well. And, you know, you can't just come into the pits immediately and jettison the tires. So, like, that's an example is, let's say you're driving the primary car, or the primary tires, and there's a more aggressive line through there, I guess. It's a little tricky to hold it in there. So you start pushing in different areas, but my point is, let's say you're driving the black tire and it's still in the good range. It's still up at 90%, and you're doing lap times that are like a solid second a lap slower. Than the red laps can do. The red tire laps can do. And maybe it's a second and a half, right? But your tires are still feeling good and they're still in the range. They just don't have as much overall grip. So then compare that to someone who is driving on the reds and their tires have already peaked. But even with tire degradation, it's manageable to the point where they're still going a half a second or 3/4 of a second. So their tires have already peaked and they're falling off, but they're still faster than you. So that is, you know, that's part of it, is starting to understand the degradation cycle and what that feels like and how to manage that, and when it becomes basically untenable. Like, I've driven these tires down to 0% before. You can do that. It just depends really on your setup and whether you have a lot of mechanical grip or if it's all like aero balanced. So there you go. First time I've gotten the thing to really spin on an exit. So that, and as I said, now we've driven the car off, put it into the grass. That might take down the tire wear a little bit, or increase the tire wear a little tiny bit. We've done a few laps. Now we're going to be 2/10 off here. Just really trying to wrestle with it to see if I can get it a little loose. See, and right there, like I said, that was a very sensitive spot where you go to apply the throttle and it would want to spin around. Again, could just end up being something that when you trim out becomes more noticeable. Yeah, see, and there it wants to spin around. So that's definitely a characteristic of the car, and I would want to fix that with the setup as much as you can. Oh, it wants to go there. So I'm starting to feel like maybe the tires are going right now. And we've just about hit 2 sets of 16 laps, but it's getting worse. Obviously, if I had my setup on the car and I felt comfortable with it and I knew kind of the tire fall off, I would be managing the car and the tires a lot as I got up there in the laps. All right, so we're going to do one more lap just to see and basically prove a point, which is that at the same point on the degradation of the tire at the same lap, does want to get a little bit loose there, that we can still put it, so to finish that we want to put in a lap that is still faster, still more competitive than the black tire at the same point. Because really, if you can only get a few good laps on the reds, that's something to note. And again, this is pretty hot, though a lot of the races tend to be hot in this series. It just adds to the trickiness of it. Just a second, just after this lap, boy, it does not want to just go flat through there. Just definitely struggling at all points. Surprised it didn't want to start spinning me there. Still nice and easy through the king. It did not want to stay in. It just wanted to keep going out. So, kind of off that look. Sorry. We're going to do just one more lap. Yeah, you can just see how poor the grip is getting now. And this is part of the conversation, you know. Is it worth it to leave these old reds on? You know, how long can you leave them on? Will they even last a whole fuel stint? Oh boy. I feel like braking performance is decreasing, which makes sense as there's less grip, and mid-corner it wants to fly off, and a lot of understeer on exit, all consistent with basically tire fall off from, you can just see now car wants to rotate with minimal amount of turning. Oh, there it wants to go in the carousel. So it's basically undrivable at this point. What would happen in a race is if I'm actually managing that, and I've damaged the front. If I was actually managing that, I would be lifting a lot. And then, like I said, I would be really looking at my lap times to understand when I need to pit and when the fall off has happened. So what do we got here? Garage says we're only down to 82% in the rears and 68% in the front. And what that means really, and actually this could be 81 if we balance the camber a little bit, and this could be 70. So that's actually not as bad as I was expecting. I was expecting to see somewhere down in probably like the 80s, maybe high 70s for the rear, and then more like 60s, 50s in the front. but I'm also not driving it particularly hard, and we're not working with a balanced setup. So it's clear, as you could see from the car wanting to spin around in the last couple of corners, it's clear that once you, and the rears are pretty hot, like this is 269 on the inside of the left rear. That's extremely hot. So what this is telling me is that we could dramatically improve the mechanical grip, and through a lot of different means, a lot. The typical go through the whole setup and change everything out and find what suits the car the best. Actually, how's the corner weight? Everything balanced? Yeah, everything looks pretty balanced corner weight wise. But the point is, there's a lot of adjustments to make on the mechanical side. And if I go look at the tire aero side, I'm up here double plane, wing main plane exit on, no wicker, 1650 wing angle. Now, this front downforce percentage, 48.10, that's pretty good. That's a good number to use. That's why there's a good, decent balance on the car. But the reality is that there's a lot of ways to make this car work better that you may not need all of this downforce, is what I'm saying. So for fun, why don't we throw on 77% closed, and I'll show you this really quick. I'll open this so you can see they do change this aspect on the car. Let's go here, and we'll exit. And just give it 1 second. As soon as it kicks over, come on. There we go. So now if we get close to the car, which eventually we will, I promise, one of these cameras does it. It's the front chase. Why have you done this to me? Chase. Okay, well, we'll just spin this around real quick. All right, so check out the grill opening. Now you can see, I'm going to zoom in here. Sorry, I'm not as familiar with the camera controls. So you can see where my mouse cursor is, this grill opening. And this is like where the driver's sitting. This is in the middle of the car. So this is a great place if we can control downforce, that it's going to actually improve dramatically the front and the rear. It will make a difference, but it'll improve both at the same time. So if we go in here and we add our grill tape, which is basically where it says here in the arrow open, we're going to change that to 77% and click apply. And as soon as we go into the car, exit the car, we can see, just a second. Now you can see that this grill has been closed, and these different flaps represent. So there's, if you can see, it's a little tough. I'm gonna see if I can zoom in a little bit more here. It's just one of those really cool things that you notice that iRacing does. They do simulate some of this stuff, and then, as you can see, as I get really close, the quality of the paint degrades. But let's just say on the left-hand side here, you can see a big piece that fits into the radiator opening. That's the first 50% chunk. And then here's the additional. This is like to get to 70%, and then this is the 77%. So leaving 23% still open to get into the radiator. And what this does is effectively just closes off this whole side of the side pod, and you can just imagine what a difference that makes in terms of aero. So we're going to go out right now and test it with this, and what it should also do is, in fact, what I'm going to do is I'm just for the sake of this. Oops. Just for the sake of this, I'm going to switch it over to... Come on. Cockpit. I'm going to change my cockpit view here so that we can see the cylinder head temp. Oh, you're going to do this to me. Go off the screen. There we go. So, first thing I'm going to do is slide back or the seat a little bit. And then I'm going to change the FO. Actually, I'll point this down a little bit too. That may give us everything we need, but I will increase the FOV just a tiny amount. Okay, that should give us everything we need. So, the stuff at the bottom is not quite as important. The 5 boxes, the front ARB, rear ARB, push to pass, fuel position, mile per gallon. That's not as important. Let's see here. How do I change? Oh, dash page you change in the F box here under the in-car adjustments. Okay, so now watch the dash. Hang on 1 second. I'm going to change where this is located just so that it's not in the way of what we're looking at. Okay, so if you look at the dashboard here, we're going to change this over to page 2. Now that shows us our oil temp and our water temp. Now this water temp is the really important one, and we're probably going to hear it from our spotter here really quick that we've got the wrong, like within 3 laps or so, we're going to start getting overheat messages. And apologize if I don't drive excellently. This is not the right FOV for me, field of view. And because it's tilted down a little bit, it makes it look like I'm driving uphill all the time. But all we're trying to do here is just see what happens with the temperature and see whether the performance really does degrade. So we're already up to 207. So like on an oval, very common to do something like bring it up to 77% for qualifying, sorry. And then in the race, you would bring it down to like 70. And again, that may change. It may be that while those settings didn't affect the car before, maybe they do now, and maybe that's a problem. Maybe there's fall off from that. Typically on a road course, you usually get away with running 70%, but sometimes, I mean, when I was running crew chief, I used to get a lot of temperature notifications that was saying the car's getting ready to overheat, stuff like that, but if it doesn't affect performance, then you don't really care, especially if it doesn't blow the car. So, I don't know. This is just another area we're going to have to test and find out what's going on. So, it does actually, I should have shown you in the garage, and we'll look at that as soon as I come in. The reason why we're testing this, but I don't want to get too many things I'm talking about here, but the reason why we're testing this right now is because this is one of the new updates that iRacing just put in. Basically, they're saying that the temperature of the engine as it gets too hot will affect the performance of the car. And so therefore you can't just run a bunch of tape without respect to how hot it's going to make the car. And so we're testing to see if that's true and or if performance noticeably falls off as we get up there. So now we're up to 257. As we get to like 260, I think it starts showing us the message. 270 maybe. As we get up there, it's going to start showing us the message is getting too hot. And that's just something to know, you know, like if you can get away with running more grill tape for 2 laps on qualifying, because it's not going to destroy the car to the point where you can get away with it, then that's what you should do. So we're looking at the water temp especially, 265. Yeah, there you go, ECT high, you can see it on the wheel now. So up to 268. And so far, we're going to look at our straight line speed, and you can see that on the right side. Yeah, you can see how much it's degrading. 45, 46 on the right hand side. There's my sector times. It's very small, but in fact, I could turn on the delta bar, but it's just there on the side, on the right side, where you can see the sector times. So the best chance to check it will be on the straights, because I'm not driving my best laps right now. We haven't blown the engine yet, and so now the engine, as I go through corners, it cools down just enough that it says, oh, not a problem. But as we stay on these straights with it closed off, it doesn't get enough air for the amount of power that it's producing. And so it doesn't get a chance to cool. So now we're up to 270. It says we're still faster. And we're still faster. Still faster, because we can drive anything, right? Car overheating, doesn't matter. 273, still not seeing the fall off yet. I thought I was before, but I haven't been. 273 still. Could have just been my line through the corner. 274 degrees. We're not blowing the engine. And we're still keeping up with lap times. Feels a bit weird to drive with this FOV. It feels a little bit like you're driving a boat. And I mean, the main thing is that the temp seems to be stabilizing at 274. I don't know where it blows up. We would find that out probably on an oval. But so far, maybe you have to do it on a, you know, over the course of a long race to see the real degradation, but I'm not seeing it yet. Because if I look at that time, it's just holding. It's like right now it's at 001. So oh, there it just went. So I didn't see any
big problems with the motor.
Degradation. A couple ammo, right? Can't wait to go back out and see that one.
Dropping a lot of fluid. We have to fix it.
So there's an example, is that if you do run it too hot, you will blow it. You will blow the engine. But I gotta see that. Let's look at that couple ammo, as Steve Matchett used to say in Formula One. All right. Boom. Let's see if we can see that in, like, slow-mo up close. Can we do that? Get into, like, the chase cam here yeah, there we go. So super slow-mo, kablamo coming up. This is what you get, folks. I mean, this would cost a lot of money if we did this in real life, but this is fun to do in sim racing. Just, yeah. Look at that. Blam. No flames, though. Always more entertaining when there's flames. Okay, so I did not see a noticeable straightaway speed degradation based off of the cylinder or the exhaust temp being too high. That is something that was promised. I do see that, if you run it in the red zone for too long, maybe like 2 laps or 3, it doesn't like that. Even if you come back out into the cool, into the point where it's not red on the dash, eventually it's still going to blow. So that will be a balancing act, and I don't know if it just makes it more susceptible to blow the longer that you have it in the red, or if there's a particular temperature or something like that. But yes, it's not surprising to me. It's going to end up being exactly the same way that it was before, and instead of having 77% on the sides, you're probably going to go 70, with the chance that if it's really, really hot, there is a chance you could go down to the 54. Now, that being said, this radiator inlet, as much as it should improve, and this will be something I can test, but as much as it really should improve the downforce, I didn't find it to be ridiculously powerful. But what they do say is if you look on the inlet, you'll see downforce to drag down here at the bottom of the aero calculator. And for those of you that don't use this, just to understand what these aero pieces do and how they affect your downforce, your front downforce, as well as your downforce to drag, this is your efficiency down here, and you should be really paying attention to that, because it's not that you always want to have the highest number there, but if you have 2 choices to obtain similar downforce and one is more efficient, the more efficient option tends to be the faster option. So that's why we really pay attention to this down here. But if you look at the radiator inlet, having it all completely open, and then you put 38%, so let's change it from open, which is where it is, to 38%. It's at 3.736, and it goes to 3.744. So it's not really a big difference. It does change the front downforce. So with it on, it's 48.14. With it off, it's 48.13. It just changes a little bit because it's actually adding it to like the middle of the car. So if we go up to 54%, we get to 37.56. 70%, 37.83, and 77%, 37.88. So the difference between 70 and 77% is really not that big of a difference in terms of the efficiency. And like I said, from the bottom, all the way from 0, 70, or 37.36, all the way to the top, 37.88, it's only like 0.5. And that's something to consider, but that's not, like, for example, if I go up here and I change, I don't know, let's say change this wing main plane exit. Look at the downforce to drag. Now, it's turned on and it's 37.88, but if I turn it off, 36.94. So like that's 100, that's like a full 10th. Right? Almost an entire 10th with just that one. And I would say this too, and then obviously it affects the front downforce percentage a lot. Changes it to 48 instead of, instead of 45. And that's going to massively change the balance. The inlet doesn't change it that much. And literally that's the only thing you can do besides the gearing maybe on the car. Just if you're really fighting the overheat, you might consider running lower revs. or if you're battling that condition in the race, you might lift at the end of the straightaway, and that will get you back down into the proper zone. I've done that before. So anyway, I can't really think of anything we can test by ourselves. The consensus so far is that red tires are significantly faster. They do appear, from my first test, to experience significant fall off over the same number of laps in terms of their grip. But in terms of their tire wear, it's not as reflected in the tire wear as one would think, at least not with this setup. And that's probably because this is a little bit heavier dependent on aero and doesn't have as much mechanical or is probably not even the proper height to achieve the proper downforce that we could achieve even with this same setup. The rolling heights are probably not correct on the car. So we're not achieving what we could in terms of downforce, and I think that always shows when the tire degradation happens and when the car starts to fall off. So it's a beautiful car. I'm looking forward to racing it for the whole season. I hope you enjoyed this review. Let me know what you think of the car in the comments. I would love to know. And then, yeah, I mean, obviously I'll love seeing you out there on the racetrack during the season. And so please like the video, subscribe. You know how this all goes on YouTube. I've only got a few subscribers. But, yeah, I'll personally like it and give you a shout out in the comments. If you subscribe and give me a comment, I'll be glad to. Anyway, hope you enjoyed this. I'll see you guys around. Thanks.